YouTube, what's happening? It is Friday, May 31st. There are 15 games to talk about in baseball today. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, because if you're not subscribed, you have been missing out on some profits. As you can see, yesterday only went 4-4, still made a unit in profits because of the Washington money line. The Braves shouldn't be minus 220 over anybody right now. And the Arroghetti Spaghetti strikeout prop was beautiful as well. Dude pitched a gem yesterday. The numbers told us he would do that. And we almost went 6-2. There were a couple things in there. We missed another K prop by 1K, and we missed an under by 1 run. It happens. If Tampa Bay didn't get the walk up, the tying home run, the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs, it would have been a win there too. So either way, you get what you can get. But either way, 4-4 made profits. Last 7, 8.5 units. So great week we had. Over the last month, almost 33 units of profit. You see what you're missing out on by not being subscribed? I think you should go ahead and do that if you want to keep making profits. We have 15 games today. Let's go ahead and jump into them. First game. All right, first matchup is the Reds and the Cubs. We got Ashcraft with a 4.67 against Asal with a 2.17. Betting markets currently have the Cubs as a 150 favorite. Over under is 8.5. Looking at numbers, they're both on 2-game losing streaks, and they both get about a 53% chance of the Nerfy. The Cubs are getting half a run more a game. No real advantage there. Middle of the pack, 17th and 13th at 3.8 and 4.3. They're batting 225 and 244. That's middle of the pack for both of them again. Strikeout wise, Cubs strike out a little bit more at 9.3 versus 7.8. Nothing's really standing out in this game. I don't like a strikeout prop from either pitcher. I don't like a Nerfy. The total, what they're getting 8.2 average. We have decent pitching. Nothing says over or under. We have batting averages are right in the middle of the road. The only advantage in this game is Assad seems to be a better pitcher based on his stats. That's it. Nothing else stands out. So based on all the information, we're going to skip on this one and move on to the next one. Our next up, we got St. Louis and Philly. We got Mikolas with a 5.64 and a 136 whip against Nola with a 304 and a 106 whip. Clearly, pitching advantage goes to Philly in this one. Looking at the betting markets, we see that the Phillies are a minus 190 on the money line. Over under 7.5 with some juice on the over. Looking at some stats in this game, though, you see St. Louis is on a 2-game winning streak, meanwhile Philly's on a 1-game winning streak. They hit up at Nerfy about 47% of the time, so that's a pass on a Nerfy. Offensively, St. Louis is much better right now. The past week in 3 games, they are getting right around 4.8 runs a game, which is 9th best. Philly is at 3.6, which is 18th, so we have advantage St. Louis in the runs. St. Louis is batting 290, which is number 1 in the majors over the last week. Philly's only batting 242, that's 15th, so we have, again, advantage St. Louis. And strikeouts, we have Philly at 7.5, St. Louis 8.4, that's 15th and 5th. Slight advantage Philly. So what we have in this game is we have statistical advantage offensively for St. Louis, but we have pitching advantage for Philly. So that cancels each other out. I don't like when we have those things because we don't really know who's going to win. Because the stats say one thing, the pitching matchup says another. I'm not sure what to do in this one. So we're going to pass on the money line. We don't know. We're definitely not going to take, what was that, 190? Yeah, no, we're not doing that. I don't feel like putting a unit on St. Louis at 150 plus 155 either. I don't know how this is going to go. Over under 7.5. The stats tell us they're getting about 8.5 runs a game. We do have a pitcher that likes to give up runs. We have a top 10 offense and a middle of the road offense. So for this one, we are going to take the over of 7.5 at minus 120. See if we can look around a little bit, see if we can get some better odds, but definitely over 7.5. And we'll move on to the next game. Next up, we got Tampa Bay at Baltimore. We got Savale with a 5.72 with a 1.34 whip against Suarez with a 1.53 with a 0.95 whip. Clearly, the pitching advantage here is for Baltimore. Suarez has much better numbers this year. Looking at the betting markets, we see the Orioles are a minus 150 at home. Over under 8.5 with some juice on the under. Stats-wise, Tampa Bay's won 2 in a row. Baltimore won their last one. Nerfy, 46%. That's a pass. Run-wise, Baltimore's 3rd in the past week at 5.8 runs a game. Tampa Bay is 20th at 3.1, so big advantage Baltimore in the runs. Batting average-wise, we have Baltimore at 248, which is 12th. Tampa Bay is, in the past week, they're last. They're 30th at 179. They are struggling. Even though Siri had a multi-home run game yesterday, they're still struggling. Doesn't matter. And on the strikeouts, we have Tampa Bay's getting 7.8 and Baltimore 9, so 9th and 23rd. So a little bit of advantage for Tampa Bay there. I see in this game here, looking at the pitching matchup, you can see Suarez has a big advantage in pitching against Tampa Bay, who was dead last in batting in the past week. They're 20th in runs in the past week. Meanwhile, Baltimore, 3rd in runs, 12th in batting average against a pitcher who gives up runs. So we're definitely taking Baltimore money line all day. We're even going to take Baltimore run line in this one because I think Baltimore should be able to get it done by at least 2 runs or more based on the stats alone. Outside of that, over-under is sitting currently at 8.5. I don't like that because we have a team that is struggling offensively and a team on fire offensively. So we don't really know which way it's going to go. We're going to pass on the total. We'll take the Baltimore money line, Baltimore run line, and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Pittsburgh and Toronto. We got Berrios with a 2.94 and a 1.10 whip against somebody who has not been named yet. So as long as it ain't Skeens, I think Berrios is going to have the pitching advantage over anybody Pittsburgh can throw out there. Looking at the betting markets, we have the Blue Jays as a 165 favorite, over under 8.5 with some juice on the under. Now, looking at some of the stats here, I see that Pittsburgh's won a game. Toronto's on a 3-game winning streak. Nerfy's about 66% of the chance. Not good enough to take, especially with a to-be-named pitcher. Don't like to see that. They're both top 8 in the majors in the past week in runs at 5.2 for Pittsburgh and 4.8 for Toronto, so no real advantage there. They're both scoring a lot of runs. Batting average, 250 for Pitt, 265 for Toronto. Again, 10th and 5th place. Not really big enough advantage to worry about. The advantage, though, Toronto is striking out 5.8, which is second least in the majors in the past week. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh is swinging at everything, 10.4 for 28th in the majors in strikeouts. Might have to look at Berrios' strikeout prop today to see what number we're sitting at and see if we might be able to take that against Pittsburgh, who was swinging at everything. Outside of that, we have a pitching matchup, but we don't know who Pittsburgh's sending out, which means it's probably not going to be somebody that good. So we instantly want to look at that over again. The over-under is 8.5. Juice is on the under, but Berrios, he gives up some runs, but not much. I expect him to give like 2, maybe 3 runs, but who sends out for Pittsburgh is what really matters. So I think I'm going to be taking the over in this one. 8.5 for sure. We have 2 top 10 batting averages, top 8 runs. I'm going to put that to the test. So we're going to take the over 8.5. Now we're going to take Toronto on the money line, 165 for sure. That'll go into parlay. With the numbers being as close as they are, I don't want to take them on a run line. So we'll just take the over Toronto money line and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Arizona and the New York Mets. We got Montgomery with a 4.69 against Severino with a 3.22. Slightly better pitching matchup for New York in this one. Looking at the betting markets, we are seeing that the Mets are minus 120, over under 7.5 with some heavy juice on the under in this one. Stats wise, we have Arizona's on a 4-game losing streak. New York won their last one. Nervy's about 65.3%. Nothing stands out for the Nervy in this one. We have 2 decent pitchers that can give up runs, so we're gonna pass on that Nervy. Offensively, though, Arizona is dead last in the majors in scoring runs in the past week at 1.5 runs a game. They are terrible at scoring runs. New York, not much better. They're getting 3 runs a game, which is 23rd. So we have 30th and 23rd for a combined 4.5 runs between the 2 teams in the past week. Not good. Batting averages, neither team is breaking 200. 26 and 27. Arizona 191, New York 198. Teams are struggling to hit the ball. They're struggling to score. And lastly, strikeouts, we have Arizona 8.5 for 16th and 10.14 for the Mets for 27th. So neither pitcher is technically a strikeout pitcher that likes to focus on strikeouts. So I'm going to lean away from a strikeout prop in this one. We're not going to take a money line side. Neither team is doing well offensively. We have a slight advantage for Severino, I think. But outside of that, all I see is 2 teams struggling to score, 2 teams struggling to hit, and 2 decent pitchers. So that tells me I'm taking the under 7.5. We're going to look around some other books and see if we can find some better juice than 130, but we'll definitely take the under and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Detroit and Boston. Hit Detroit on that money line yesterday. That was beautiful. Dude had a no-hitter going through 6. It was great to see. Today, we have Maeda with a 5.8 and a 1.32 going up against Hawk with a 1.9 and a .99 whip. Definite clear advantage for Boston in the pitching here. Hawk is way better pitcher than Maeda is. Looking at the betting markets, we see that the Red Sox are minus 170, over under 8.5 with some little bit of juice on the under in this one. Looking at some stats, we see Detroit won their last one. Boston's on a 2-game losing streak. They're hitting the Nerfy about 39.6% of the time. Not even close, not even a shot. Pass on that one. Now, the stats tell the story here. Detroit offense has been on fire this week. They're second in the majors at 6.17 runs. Meanwhile, Boston is at 27th and 2.7. So clear advantage Detroit offensively here. Batting average, we have Detroit at 271, which is third. Boston 217, which is 21st. Another clear advantage, massive advantage for Detroit offensively. Strikeouts, 8.1 for Detroit, 9.2 for Boston. That's 12th and 24th. Slight advantage Detroit here. So we have Detroit dominating offensive stats, but we have Boston dominating the pitching matchup here because that's not even a fair matchup, really. May doesn't nowhere close to Hawks level. Hawks way too good. Hawk is a strikeout pitcher, but Detroit's only striking out 8.1, so I don't want to take a strikeout prop with them. I don't want to take a money line because, yeah, Hawks dominant pitching, but Detroit's offense is on fire, so we're going to pass on that. And for the total, I see that it is currently 8.5. I don't know which way to go because we have such two different dominant sides in this one. This game is going to be a complete pass all around and just move on to the next game. Next up, we got Texas and Miami. We got Urena with a 3.53 against Sanchez with a 6.25. Pitching matchup obviously goes to Texas in this one. Sixto just isn't getting it done this year. Looking at the betting markets, we are seeing that the Rangers are a slight favor on the road. Over under 8.5 with some juice on the over. Stats wise, we are seeing that Texas on a 3-game winning streak. Meanwhile, Miami's on a 1-game streak. Nerfy about 45% of the time as a pass. Texas 4.2 runs a game, which is 15th, and Miami 3 runs a game, which is 23rd in the past week. So slight advantage to Texas. Batting average, Texas 201 for 25th, Miami 258, which is 7th. So we have a definite advantage for Miami in the batting average. Strikeouts, Texas 6.6, which is 3rd, 8.5 for Miami, which is 16th. So we don't really have much of an advantage when it comes to stats. Only thing we have again is a slight advantage in the pitching, with Urena being much better overall than Sanchez. Over under 8.5. Both teams are in the bottom half, mid and bottom when it comes to scoring, so we're going to pass on the over. Both pitchers, we have one that has a 6 ERA. That's not good. I don't want to do that for an under. We're going to pass on that. Side-wise, I don't like either side in this one. Nothing really stands out to take this on. A slight lean to Texas, but outside of that, nothing says take this. So this whole game is going to be a pass on everything and move on to the next one. All right, next up, we got Washington and Cleveland. We got Patrick Corbin at a 6.12 against BB with a 3.99. Clear advantage for Cleveland in this one, in my opinion. Looking at the betting markets, we have Cleveland at minus 225 money line, over under 7.5 with some juice on the over. Stats wise, we are seeing that Washington's on a 2-game winning streak. Cleveland lost their last one. Nerfy about 60%. We're going to pass on that. Washington and Cleveland both offensively are dominating. They're both top 10 in runs. 4.5 for Washington, 7 for Cleveland. That's 11th and 1st in the majors in the past week. Washington's 2nd in batting average at 283, Cleveland's 8th at 255, and they're both striking out 7.7, 7.8 times a game, which is both good for top 10. So we have two offenses that are really clicking right now against Patrick Corbin, who's giving up 6.12 ERA and a 1.67 whip. BB's I say he has a slight advantage, not much of one. He has a 4 ERA with a 1.23 whip. So the main thing we're looking at here, we're taking the over in this one 100% because it's 7.5. We're going to try to find better juice out there, see if we can get something better besides 130. The offenses are both top 10 runs, both 10 batting average, both 10 strikeouts over all day. Now the side is where it gets iffy. 225 for Cleveland here is weird. That's too much. I can't do that. I know it's Corbin, but we know what Corbin can do. Perfect game through 6 or 10 runs through 6. We don't know. So we're going to pass on that money line, but we are going to take the over in this one and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Oakland and Atlanta. We got Sears with a 3.8 against Lopez with a 1.75. Pitching matchup goes to Atlanta based on the stats alone in this one. Betting markets, we are seeing the Braves at 225, over under 8.5 with some juice on the under in this one. Looking at the stats, they're both on 2-game losing streaks. They're hitting the Nerfy about 51%, so that's a pass. Runs a game, they're both almost identical. 3-1 for Oakland, 3-2 for Atlanta. That's 20th and 19th. So they're both bottom 10, middle, bottom range there. Batting average wise, Oakland 213 for 24th, Atlanta 241 for 16th. Slight advantage Atlanta in the past week. Oakland is striking out 10.67, which is the worst in the majors. That is 30th in the past week. Meanwhile, Atlanta 8.7, which is 21st. So neither offense is really doing too good. They're both in that sitting in that bottom 10 range, 20th range overall. So neither offense is great. We have pretty decent pitching though coming out here. 3.8 and a 1-1 whip. That's not bad. Not bad. Could be better. Lopez 1.7 with a 109. I like that. That's good stuff. I might look at Lopez's strikeout prop mainly because of how bad Oakland has been striking out recently. 10.67 is terrible for striking out. So we'll look at a Lopez K prop for sure and see how that works. The main thing, I'm not liking 225. Again, why are the Braves 225? They just struggled. They just got dominated by the Nationals in 2 straight games. So I don't like that. Over under 8.5. I am leaning the under 8.5 in this one, minus 125. We'll take that. We'll skip on the money line, look at the K prop, and move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got the White Sox and the Brewers. We got Fetty with a 2.8 going up against Myers with a 4.43. Slight, maybe a decent advantage on the pitching matchup for Chicago in this one. Looking at the betting numbers, Brewers are minus 170, over under 7.5 with some juice on the over here. Stats wise, we are seeing that Chicago is on an 8-game losing streak. They are doing a terrible streaking. Milwaukee's on a 2-game winning streak. Nerfy, 55%, that's a pass. Runs a game, Chicago 2 in the past week, which is 29th. And Milwaukee is 5.4, which is 5th. So massive advantage for Milwaukee offensively. Batting average 191 for Chicago, which is 27th, 250 for Milwaukee, which is 10th. Massive advantage for Milwaukee again. Strikeouts 8.5 for Chicago, 8.2 for Milwaukee. No real advantage there. Pitching matchup, I said, was a slight advantage for Chicago. Looking at this matchup, these numbers, yeah, he's better, but is he really that? The numbers here, Milwaukee is dominant right now when it comes 5th and 10th in runs and batting average. Meanwhile, Chicago is struggling to score. So, and Myers doesn't give up that much. He's only pitched 22 innings, so it's really hard to get a full judge of how he's been doing. So, looking at the numbers in this one, 170 is, I think 170 will go into my moneyline parlay. Obviously, try to find a better number. There's tons of other books out there and just one. Over under 7.5, I'm not touching. I'm going to leave that alone. We have a bottom 2, bottom 3 offense versus a top 10 offense. I don't like that recipe, so we're going to skip the over under. We'll take Milwaukee in the money line and move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got Minnesota and Houston. We got Lopez with a 5.25 and a 1.17 against Blanco with a 1.99 and a 1.01. Clear advantage from Houston in this one when it comes to the pitching. Looking at the stats, Houston's a slight favor on the money line, over under 7.5 with some juice on the over. Look at the statistics. They tell us that both teams have won their last game. 53% Nerfy is a pass for us. Minnesota is getting 4 runs a game. Houston 3 runs a game over the past week, both 16th and 23rd, bottom half of the majors. Batting average 247 Minnesota, 227 Houston. No advantage on that one, both middle of the road. They're both doing really well in strikeouts. 7.2 for Minnesota, 7.5 for Houston, 4th and 6th. So we're not going to be looking at strikeout props for either one of these. We're not. No money line stands out in this one. We have a better pitcher, but the numbers don't line up to judge take that one, especially they're not lining up right. So we're going to pass on that. Over under for this one is 7.5. Looking at these numbers here, 16 to 23rd, that's 7 runs a game. You're averaging below the number itself, and now you're struggling, and you're going up against a decent pitcher with maybe an iffy pitcher. We're going to pass on that too. So this entire game is going to be a pass all the way around. Next game. Next up, we got San Diego and Kansas City. We got Cease with a 3.29 against Waka with a 4.31. Pitching matchup, not really much of an advantage in this one. They're both maybe slight for Cease, but Looking at the betting markets, we have the Padres as a 125 favor in the money line, over under 7.5 with some juice on the over. Stats wise, we see they both lost their last game. They're hitting the Nerfy about 31.4%. We're almost wanting to hit a Yerfy in this one because the stats are so low. We're not going to do that though. It needs to be 20-something% before we even consider a Yurfie. Runs wise, San Diego is 28th in runs at 2.17 over the past week. Kansas City is 7th at 5 runs a game. So we have advanced Kansas City on the runs. Batting average 217 for San Diego, which is 21st, 252 for Kansas City, which is 9th, advantage Kansas City. Strikeouts, San Diego is number 1 at 5.3 and 7.7 for Kansas City for 7. So no real advantage in the strikeouts. Neither one striking out that much. We have offensive advantages for Kansas City. We have an iffy pitching matchup. The numbers are telling us the Royals are slightly a dog at home. I like betting on dogs at home, especially plus money. And I have a little streak. I bet on the Royals 3 games in a row. They all lost. I didn't take them. They won. And then, so we're going to do it today. We're going to take the Royals at home, money line. The numbers tell us to. The pitching matchup's equal. So we'll take them on the money line. Over under 7.5, we're going to pass on because, again, we have a struggling offense, hot offense. That's not a good recipe. So just Kansas City money line. Next game. Next up, we got Angels and Mariners. We got Soriano with a 3.61 up against Woo with a 1.66. Betting markets have the Mariners at a 175 favor. Over under 7.5 with some juice on the under. Looking at the stats in this one, we see that the Angels have lost 2 in a row. Seattle lost their last one. Nerfy about 54%, so we're going to pass on that Nerfy. Runs a game. Angels 20th at 3.1. Seattle 26th at 2.8. So bottom 10 off when it comes to runs. Batting average, Angels 2.16, which is, they're batting 216, which is 23rd. Seattle's batting 185, which is 29th. Bottom 7 batting average for the teams in the past week. 20th for Angels and strikeouts at 8.6, and 29th for Seattle strikeouts at 10.57. If anything, might have to look at Seattle strikeout props again like we did yesterday because they're striking out so much. Soriano 51 to Ks to 22. We might look at Soriano props there. Overall, I don't see much of an advantage when it comes to the money line. 175 is high. I don't see the stats to back this up. If anything, Angels have better numbers. Slightly better, but they are better. Pitching matchup we see is, Woo's better. Better numbers overall. That 0.6 whip is nasty. Love to see that. But outside of that, I don't see why. That might be 135, maybe 140, not 175. That's too much. So we're going to pass on the money line here. Over under 7.5 with both teams struggling with both decent pitchers. We are going to be taking the under 7.5 in this one. Look for a better number. I got 125. I can find better, I'm sure. So under 7.5, and we are going to be looking at the K props for Soriano to see what we can find there because of how much Seattle's striking out. Next game. Next up, we got Colorado and the LA Dodgers. We got Hudson with a 5.54 up against Buehler with a 4.26. Betting markets currently have the Dodgers at minus 300 with an over-under of 8.5 with some juice on the under. Stats tell us in this one that Rockies have won their last one. Dodgers have won 3 in a row now. They're hitting the Nerfy about 40%. That's a pass. Stats-wise, we have Colorado getting 5.6 runs a game, which is 4th best in the past week. Dodgers 4.3, which is 13th best in the past week. Advantage Colorado. Batting average, they're both top 6, 260 and 266. 6th place for Colorado, 4th for the Dodgers. So both top 6 batting averages. Colorado striking out 8.8. 8.1 for the Dodgers, 22nd and 12th, not really an advantage there. So the only real advantage over here is Colorado's getting 1 more running game. That's it. They're 4th best in runs. Pitching matchups are both terrible. Both pitchers, look at these numbers. They're just not that good. With the over-under it sitting at 8.5, with these 2 pitchers and the fact that both offenses are doing good, I don't see how this doesn't go over. So we're going to take the over 8.5. But we're not minus 300. They have a slightly better pitcher, but the stats are slightly better for Colorado. So this doesn't make sense. So 300 makes absolutely no sense to me. So we're going to pass on the money line all day. We're not even going to put that in a parlay. Nothing. I'm not trusting that. Can't do it. We're going to take 8.5 over and move on to the next game. Last game, we got the Yankees and the Giants. We got Stroman with a 2.76 against Hicks with a 2.33. Pretty decent pitching matchup here. No real advantage to speak of. Betting markets have the Yankees at -135, over under 7.5, but it's a bit of juice on the over. Stats wise, we have the Yankees have won 2 in a row. Giants lost their last one. Nerfy, 52% of the chance. Not going to take a Nerfy. Runs a game, both top 12. 4.5 for the Yankees, 4.6 for the Giants. That's 12th and 10th. So not top, right at the top 10 mark. Batting average, Yankees 235 at 17th. Giants 222 for 20th. Both struggling a little bit to strike the ball. Strikeouts, Yankees 9.5 for 26th place. Giants 8.5 for 16th place. Yankees are striking out more than they should be recently. Looking at the numbers here, with the Yankees being a slight favorite, but the numbers nothing's really standing out here. The pitching matchup's the same. The numbers are all the same. There's no reason nothing tells me the Yankees are going to be better in this one. The only thing we have here is that the Giants are striking out less. That's all we have, because you see the pitching numbers are almost the same. There's nothing that stands out here. So we're going to pass on the money line. There's nothing to look at here. Both are pretty good pitchers. Both offenses are middle of the pack. Over under 7.5. If it was 8.5, I would take the under. But it was 7.5, we're going to leave that alone well. So this entire game is going to end up being a pass. All right, that's it. All 15 games broken down. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you have any questions, comments, fade, follow. Let me know if I missed something. Pitching changes. I love when you guys let me know when there's a pitching change, because you might see it before I do. Let me know those things so I can update real quick. And I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate you following, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.